I am just getting the link sent over to my Facebook page so everybody can find and watch the video. I got myself out of order here. And so, yes, just one moment. I had a system going and my brain went for a fart. So I forgot to post the link. So let me see. Have we got it there? Yes, we do. Okay. Good evening. Hello, hello. It's Monica from Life is Art. And this is the Wednesday Let's Create evening Valentine's edition. I'm not sure if what I'm making is particularly a Valentine, but we can call it the Valentine's edition because it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on a replay, you can just say replay. And I've just got my chat up and going so I can see if anybody's joining me. Getting myself arranged here. I kind of got ahead of myself. I pushed start before I was quite all settled. And you know, that's never a good thing to do things before you're settled. But here we are nonetheless. And this evening we're going to be making our if you looked at the title when you popped in, we're going to be making a window seat bench card. We're going to be using the featured collection for the month of February, which is called Sweet Memories. We're going to be using some of the pattern paper from that collection. We're also going to be using the stamp of the month, which is back here, called Say It With Flowers. We're going to be using that as well. We're also going to be using one of the thin cuts that's featured in this catalog, which is the 3" by 3" window frame thin cut. We're also going to be using, this is quite an elaborate card considering all the things we're going to be using. We're also going to be using the Goodnight Teddy stamp set, and yeah, I think that's about it. That's all we need, right? And so I hope you guys are excited about this, and I would like to thank Karen for suggesting that we give a bench card a try. So I've kind of taken my own little variation on it, and we're going to give it a go. So to start off, we need to do a few things. So this is the 3" by 3" window frame thin cut, and which is available right now just while that catalog lasts, while quantities last. And so we're going to quickly take our piece of white daisy paper, grab our die cutter machine, and we're going to run this through. Now, because this is a big square die, don't run it through your machine straight on. Put it on an angle so the corner hits first. And that will just be easier on your machine, easier on your die, easier all the way around. It runs nicer that way. See, you didn't hear it even going over that point. And then it just makes a little click when it comes down off the back end. Whereas if I had put it in straight, you would have seen me struggle to get it up over that front edge, and then at the end you would hear a bang as it came crushing down behind it. So always try to put those kinds of dies on an angle. It's just more lovely all the way around. Hey Mom, nice to see you're watching. So what you're going to get once you put this through your machine is you're going to get all the little squares, little chiclets, which of course you can keep and use for something else. You can make a fun pattern with those. You can ink them up, you can stamp them up, lots of things. So I just set those aside. But then you also get the window frame, which is what we're going for. All right, like that. And put that back on the magnetic sheet. So there is our really fun window frame, and you'll see that it has stitching around the 9 squares in the center. It has kind of a lovely cottagey, beachy kind of vibe. I kind of like that with the little window panes. So we're going to set that aside for now. We're going to use that later. I'm going to end up making a stack of stuff up there. And then we also need to do some stamping. So I might as well do that now. So the first thing that we're going to stamp, and I might even use my stamp platform for this. Why not? We've got a lovely piece of White Daisy cardstock here. We can stick it in our stamp platform like that. We've got two things actually that I want to stamp, and we're going to begin with one of these cute little teddies from the Goodnight Teddy collection. And the one we want is this one that's here reading a cute little book. It looks all snuggly. And so we're just going to remove that from the carrier sheet. Walk it off with your fingers. And then we're going to set that down here on our White Daisy. Maybe we'll even stick it in the corner. Conserve some space. And then I also want to stamp out the sentiment, "You warm my heart." So I guess it is kind of Valentine's-y. We could use that for a Valentine, couldn't we? So we're going to walk that one off. And we might as well stick them near each other. Just like that. Pick it up with our platform. And I obviously have some ink on my, you see that? I'm going to flip this over. I've got some ink on my hands and on, I don't know how I did that already. I have touched nothing with ink. How did I do that? It's always a mystery how that happens. But I've obviously touched something that has ink on it. Now I'm going to spread it everywhere. Alrighty. And if only I had got my stamp chamois wet before we started, I could use my stamp chamois to help me out with that predicament. But I did not do that. So we shall soldier on. I'm going to use my intense black ink to ink these up. Now these are new stamps. They have been seasoned, but we'll give them another little seasoning there. And we're going to go ahead and ink those up. Now this wording here, this word warm, is a nice, thick, solid image. So we're going to have to ink it up really well. And that's why I'm using my platform, so that I can go ahead and stamp it out a couple of times. See that? So my bear turned out great, but that very solid word needs a little more love with the ink. We'll get some more ink on there. And the great thing with the stamp platform is that you can go once, twice, 3 times if you need to. I think that looks okay. So let's get this off of here. You know what it might be? What I'm getting on my hands? I think there's ink on my platform because I was inking last night and I was overshooting my paper. And I think that's where I'm getting the... It's not fun in the craft room until you're covered in ink, right? That's how you know you've had a good time. So we've got those things stamped up. And we'll set those aside. We're going to get a whole bunch of stuff stamped up. You're going to have no idea what's happening. Then I've got a 3-inch, but sorry, not 3-inch, 3.5-inch square piece of White Daisy. We're going to do some stamping on this. And for that, I need my stamp of the month, which is over here. Let me just grab it. There we go. Say it with flowers, with all of these gorgeous flowers on here. Now, I'm going to need a piece of scrap paper for this because, just like I said about what I was working on last night, I'm going to end up overshooting the edge. Will that work? No, I need actual scrap paper. Let me grab a piece of this. There we go. It's a huge piece of scrap paper. Enormous. Enormous. And now my camera will have no idea what to focus on because it's a sea of white. But we're going to stamp out some of these florals on this 3.5-inch square. I think we'll start out with this big bouquet. Do you like starting projects where you just stamp a whole bunch of stuff and then see what happens? It happens to me a lot. I do. I like to do that. Let me grab a stamp block. This might be enormous, but it's going to at least get it all on there. There we go. And I'm going to need my intense black ink again. Grab that. We're going to ink up this bunch of flowers. Now what I want to do is I want to kind of focus stamping my flowers towards the bottomish side of this piece of paper. So maybe right about there. Stamp that down. Looks good. And then let me grab another stamp block. Let's grab this stamp here with the single floral on it. And let it relax for a second. Pick it up with my block. And we'll stamp that one right along the edge there like that. Lovely. And then let me see, maybe this little droopy bud over here. These ones you want to be gentle taking them off because it's got that long thin stem. So you don't want to just grab one end and give it a yank, because if you did that, you'd probably end up stretching it or doing something even worse. You don't want to damage your stamps. So always be gentle. So we're going to ink up this little bud. Hopefully not getting too much ink in weird places. And you know what? I'm going to mask off that little leaf there. Just with a sticky note. Just like that. Maybe a little bit farther down. Just so I don't run right through it. And we'll stamp that there like that. And then it'll look like that second leaf is just tucked in behind. Now I don't need a whole lot more on there because we've kind of filled the space, but I am going to grab just the little, this one here. Just this little cluster leafy thing. And ink that up. Stamp it right there. Yeah, I think that's good. I don't even need to stamp it again. Just like that. Done like dinner. Only dinner's not done yet. It's cooking currently. What are you guys having for dinner for Valentine's? We're having Caribbean sweet potato stew with rice. Vegan dish that our family enjoys. Alrighty, so I'm going to set this aside. Whew. Now that we've done all that stamping, we need to work on our card base. So the base for this card, which is usually where we start, but I decided to get some stamping out of the way first, and hopefully I don't get inky all over everything. Our card base is 9 1/4 by 5 inches. And we're going to do some scoring. So I've just got White Daisy, 9 1/4 by 5 inches. Let's line it up on our Versamat so we can do some scoring. Now, we're making a bench card, bench fold card. And it's kind of like if a bridge card met a box card. So if you've ever made a bridge card or you've ever made a box card, you're in good shape for making a bench card. So along this 9 1/4 inch side, we're going to score it at 1.5. There we go. And then we're going to score it at 2 3/4. So 1.5, then 2 3/4. Then we're going to jump over here and score it at 6 3/4. 6 3/4, and then at 8 inches. So our last one at 8 inches. There we go. Easy peasy. So if you've ever created a bridge card, you know that you usually have a center panel and then you have two sides that come up and then go out. So we're going to start by first folding on this second crease line towards the center. Make sure everything lines up before we crease it down, like that. Then we're going to fold this first crease line back on itself, and it will overhang by 1/4 of an inch. So if I hold it up like this, we've kind of created a little Z fold, and you can see that this front panel is a little bit bigger than the second panel. This is 1 1/4 inches. This is, or maybe that's 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches and 1 1/4 inches. So now we're going to go over to this third crease line. We're going to fold everything in, just like we did on the other side. We're kind of mirroring the folds. And then this last fourth score line, we're going to fold back on itself. Oh, that didn't line up. Something is amiss. Let me double check my measurements. 6 3/4 and 8 inches. That's not right, I don't think. Okay, let's take a look. Yes, I did something amiss. I sure did. This should be at 6.5. This crease line here should be at 6.5, not 6 3/4. I wrote a bad measurement down. Let me fix that on my piece of paper here. 6.5. And then the last measurement would be at 6.5, 7 3/4. That looks better. 7 3/4. Now, if it was a perfect world, I would probably recut that piece. So let me write down that measurement again. 6.5 and 7 3/4. So when I put the measurements on, I will hopefully put the correct one. So now we're gonna recrease this. So we're going to go to that 6.5 score line, and we're gonna fold on that, and then we're gonna fold back on the fourth one right there, which is at 7 3/4. Now that looks right. Look at that. It's amazing what happens when you actually follow the right measurements. Hey, Joanne, nice to see you're watching. So you can see that this very much looks like a double gatefold kind of card or a bridge card, because a bridge card kind of starts out like a gatefold card, and then you just have something that bridges across. So in keeping that in mind, we are going to create something that bridges across. And so we've got a second piece of white daisy, and this is 6 3/4 by 2.5. Let me double check. 6 3/4 by 2.5. And we're going to do some scoring on this one as well. We're going to turn it, and along this 2.5 inch side, we're going to score it right in half. So we're going to score it at 1 1/4 so that it's scored right in a half. 1 1/4. Just line that up. And then the next part we're going to not score, but we're going to cut. So you're going to need either a trimmer that does this kind of measuring, or you're going to need to use an X-Acto blade like I am. So we've turned it back to the 6 3/4 inch side. Just going to line it up here on my Versamat. Now let's hope we got these measurements right, because we're cutting this time, not just scoring. So we're going to trim at 1.5 inches. So we're going to line up at 1.5, and we're going to trim just from the top down to the score line. But I want to, yes, I'm trimming at 1.5. But you know how when you trim on your trimmer, you can trim right on the line, or you can be a little left or a little right of the line, and it makes a difference. So we're creating a bit of a tab that's going to go in this space right here. And if we trim it to the exact size, it's not going to fit. Does that make sense? Because we've got the thickness of paper happening. So this score line and this score line are going to be the same distance apart as these two cut lines that we're going to create on here. So instead of cutting right directly immediately on 1.5, I'm going to go to 1.5, and then I'm going to go a little touch to the right, so that I'm creating this tab just a little bit narrower. Does that make sense? So instead of cutting at 1.5, I'm going to go like a 1/16 of an inch, like just a touch closer to the center of this card. So now I'm going to cut from there just down to that score line. Okay. Now we're going to come over to the other side, and we're going to cut at 5.25. But again, we're keeping in mind that we want to make this center tab just a little bit narrower. So this time, instead of going a little to the right of our line, we're going to go a little to the left, like just a smidge. We don't want to end up with gaps anywhere, but we also want to make sure that our card will open and close nicely. So we're just cutting from the top down to that crease line. Okay, put that away, put this away for a minute. And so now we have created, oh, why does that look weird again? Oh my goodness, what is wrong with my measurements today? I totally cut that wrong. We're starting again with that piece of paper. My word. So I think somebody put something weird in my water bottle today. We have trimmed that wrong. Let's start that one again. There's no saving that one. Okay, so we need our piece again. That is 4 3/4. Sorry, 6 3/4 by 2.5. 2.5. You know, I usually have extra pieces cut sitting beside me in case of accident. And I rarely ever need them. And then the one day that I don't have my just in case pieces sitting beside me is the day that I need all the pieces, right? Okay. So we've got our piece of paper again. The paper was the right size. I cut in the wrong spot. I said 5.25, and I actually went to 4 3/4. Like my brain just transposed to the wrong side of the 5. So weird. Okay, let's score it again. Gotta love live video. We're gonna score it at 1.25 because that's halfway through our piece of paper. At 1.25 along this short side. Then we're gonna turn it 90 degrees. And we're going to do our trimming. You're going to get to see this card made 5 times before we get through the first one. Oh, my word. Okay, we're going to cut it at 1.5. And we're going to go a little smidge closer to the center on that 1.5 inch cut. Just a smidge. So just trimming there down to the score line. Then we're going to go to 5.25. This time we're actually going to go to 5.25, not 4 3/4, like my brain just transposed backwards there. So 5.25 and just a smidge closer to the 5. Not a whole half of an inch closer. That was too much. And as soon as I looked at it, I knew it was too much. So there we go. I guarantee I know what I'm doing. No, I'm not going to guarantee anything. So now we have our long strip here at the bottom, and at the top we have 2 little tabs and 1 big tab. Now we want to trim off those little tabs. So we're going to go here to the score line at the end, and we're just going to trim that corner off. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to follow along that score line. You could use a trimmer for this, but it's just as easy with your scissors, and trim those 2 pieces off. So now our piece should look like this. Okay, so if you think about a bridge card, you think about you need something to span the distance between those 2 front panels. And for the bench card, we're going to have this tab that's going to fold and go in between those 2 spots. Okay? So now that we've done that, I want to create a little bit of design here on this. And I wanted to do a wood grain, but I don't have any wood grain paper that I thought looked good with this right at this moment. So I'm going to do the little technique that we've done before. We've done it during crops and things, where we take our ruler and our bone folder and we just score. And it doesn't matter how close or how far apart we are. We're just creating score lines, and we're going to go all the way along from that center spot down to the bottom. We don't have to worry about doing anything up here. We're not going to worry about that part. We're just creating score lines all along. So if you've followed along with the crops and things and have seen the technique where we create the wood grain, this is a super fun skill to have and a great technique because it works for scrapbooking, card making, you name it, it works. And it's fun, and it gives you a way to create wood grain if you don't have any wood grain to use. Bringing back in my scrap paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my little sticky note here that I used before, just to mask above that center score line that we created, because I don't really want to get any ink on the little tab here. So we've got that, and we're going to grab, what color was it that I used? I think it was the Mink. Mink. So I've got my Mink ink. Whenever I say Mink ink, it makes me think of Dr. Seuss. And now that we've got all those lovely score lines running along there, we're just going to take our ink pad and we're just going to rub it across our paper like that. And then we'll turn it around and we're going to go the other direction, just like that. And you can see that this is a way to create some really fun wood grain for a time when you don't have wood grain. Let me just remove all this extra stuff here, all our protective gear. And there we go. We've created a fun wood grain just like that. Isn't that so cool? I love this technique. It just comes in so handy because I love wood grain, but I don't always have wood grain that I can use. And I'm going to take this tab and we're going to fold it back and crease it down. And there's one last piece that we need for our card. We have our bridge with our tab. Now we need a little slicer, just like you would use if you were creating a box card. Ooh, my video is doing something really funky. Let me just see if I can get it to focus. We'll see if that settles it out. It could just be the screen on my it's doing something weird with my Versamat. Does anybody else notice that? That my Versamat looks very weird? Let's see if we can get it to focus. Okay, well, hopefully it'll sort itself out. Our last piece is 4 3/4 by 1 1/4, and we're going to score it 1/2 inch in from each end. So this is 4 3/4 by 1 1/4, and we're going to score 1/2 inch in. And again, with this scoring, we're going to come to the 1/2 inch, And we're going to be just a little closer to the center, just ever so slightly closer to the center of our piece of paper. Okay, and then we're going to come over to this other side, and we're going to come 1/2 inch in plus a hair, 1/2 inch plus a hair towards the center. And then we can go ahead and fold those 2 1/2 inch tabs back, crease them down. This is something that's not going to really get seen in your card. It's just part of the mechanism. So we can just kind of have it. We can just have it. So we've got all these pieces now. We have our base, we have our bridge with our tab, and we have our little spacer that will eventually get put in there. Now we need to get our stuff ready that we stamped ahead of time, get it ready to go on our card. So the window that we've created here is going to go in that center space. That center space is 3 3/4 inches. This is 3 3/4 inches. So if you know anything about folding paper, you know that this is going to buckle if we try to put it in that center space without trimming a little bit off. So on the left and right side, whichever side you decide is left and right, we're going to trim just a tiny bit. So we're going to take off, what would that be? A 1/16? I think that's what that little notch is a 1/16 of an inch. Off the right side, we're going to turn it all the way around, and we're going to take another 1/16 of an inch off the other side. And that will give us, just like how we cut and or scored a little bit to the center, that's going to give us a little bit of wiggle room so that our card can still fold flat to go in an envelope. Okay, so we've just trimmed an 1/16 of an inch off each side. Okay, now depending on how you're decorating a bench card, you might not need to do that because you might not be using a window frame. But for my purposes, I am. I'm going to set that aside. This is the piece that I want to go inside my card. And it's going to be behind this window. So I want to do a little bit of decorating on here to make it look like the outdoors, the great outdoors. And so I have chosen a couple of markers here. I've got Coral Blend, and I've got dull green blend, and those are the two that I'm going to use to color these florals. But I also want to add a little bit of color into the background of my piece. So I'm going to just put a piece under there to block it. I could be grabbing my all-purpose mat for this, but for some reason I'm not. I'm going to take my Glacier ink and my blending tool, my blending brush, and I'm just going to add some Glacier into the background. I'm going to try and avoid the stamped images as much as I can, but I want to add some sort of sky color to my outdoors. So we're just going to kind of come around, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker up at the top, and then it's going to fade out a little bit as I go in and around the flowers. Like that. Just do it lightly. The leaves and things will be dark enough that I'll kind of cover up the bit of ink that might have gotten on my stamped images. There we go. Just like that. Just a little bit of color to add something to our background. And then I'm going to start doing the coloring with my Coral Blend. I'm going to start with the lightest color first of the coral, and I'm just going to go ahead and add some color to these flowers here. Now, we've done these flowers before in purple, which was beautiful, and I really like that. But for this one, I decided I wanted a different color scheme happening. So we're just adding the light color first. I'm going to come down to this guy here. Add some there. Move it around. Oh, one thing that I've noticed is that this this little stem here looks like it should go through this stem. Those both look like stems, so I'm just going to draw that in. You know, my brain just says, hey, that would look good as a stem, so we're going to put a stem there. And then just color. So we're going around with our light color first, like so. On all of our flowers. We're going to color all our flowers here all the same color. Like that. And this little guy here too. And then this last one. I like the Tri-Blend markers because you get 3 colors, and my light is really running out. You can hear that scritchy, scritchy, scratchy, scratchy sound. That's a sure sign that the marker is getting low. I like that all 3 colors are here. Then I'm going to come in with the mid of the coral and add a little bit of color just on those sort of design lines, shadow lines, veins, whatever you want to call it, on all my little petals of the flowers. I'm kind of avoiding coloring the center. We're going to add a little bit on this one too, a little bit down here. Now this one might not be entirely visible when we're done, but we'll color it anyway, just to say we did. And then we're going to switch to the dark of the coral and add just a little touch just around the center and at the tips or the base of the lows. Just a little tiny touch. And I think I actually have a different coral. So I'm going to grab that and see if my lightest one on the other one is actually in better shape than that one. I think I have another coral. Oh no, that's Coral Shades. I don't. Oh yes, I do. It's sitting right here. Sitting right there. And, oh yes, that's much better. See, now we can just go over, coloring over that mid and dark to blend them all together. Beautiful. It gets nice little shadowy, kind of variegated color happening. There we go. Swirly, swirly. I find when I'm doing the blending, I kind of like doing that little swirly motion with my marker, just to kind of encourage everything to blend together. There we go. There's not a lot of blending that has to happen on that one. And then our last one. I think these flowers are so pretty. This stamp of the month is awesome. And it's only available for the month of February, but you can get it for $6.75 with a qualifying order. And then if you're a VIP, you can get it for free with a qualifying order, which is awesome. I'm going to come in with my dull green, use the lightest first just to add a little color to these little flowers, or little leaves first. I'll add a little bit to that one too. And there we go. Just a touch of green against that Glacier background. And a little bit there. And a little bit there. And then we're going to switch to the mid and add a little touch of dark. I'm not even going to go back over these little guys. I'm just adding a touch of the color there, just to give them some definition. But I will come in with this. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to color the whole thing with that mid. I like that contrast. That leaf might not even be shown when we're done. just gonna color that all in with the mid. Like that. Good and messy. Okay. Excellent. Might as well do that one too. Okay. Ta-da! We're done our coloring for that. Let's grab our little dude here. We're gonna color our little bear in with the red brown. Going with the lightest color first. And I'm just gonna color everything with the lightest color. And for this little bear, I'm kind of doing little swirly coloring because why not? It makes him look fluffy. I like little floofy teddy bears. So we're just going to go around and around in little circles. I'm going to go around his ear, his little hands, or paws. I guess bears have paws. And then we'll come in with the mid and add a little bit of darker in his ears, a little shadow under his paws, like that. Add a little bit of dark there, a little bit down the side of his cheek. And then we can go back to the light and blend those two colors together. Like so. And just give him a little bit more definition with all those little swirlies. So cute. I'm also going to come in with the mid of the dull green and just color the cover of his book. Like this. I think it's so cute that he's snuggled up here on this chair reading a book. But we're actually going to do some fussy cutting on him and get rid of his chair, even though he's so cute sitting in his chair. We're going to do some double fussy cutting for those of you who love fussy cutting like I do. And for those of you who don't, you can just look away for a minute. You know, think happy thoughts while we do that. And then for his blanket, we're going to come in with the mid coral and just color in his blanket like so. I'm just going to kind of go back and forth. We're just filling in a big space like that all the way. And it actually doesn't matter so much if I color outside the lines. You'll see why in a minute. Although I'm trying not to color outside the lines, but if I do happen to color outside the lines, it'll be okay. And then let's come in with the dark. We'll add a little bit of shadow here on the little folds in his blanket. A little bit of shadow coming across the bottom. There we go. We'll go back to the mid and kind of blend those two things together like that. There we go. Okay. Whew. All done that. We're going to just get that started cutting. I'm going to get that started cutting. And then we're going to start putting things together. And we'll come back to the fussy cutting. We'll save that for later. Okay. I know this card takes a little while. So we've got our base. We've got our spacer. We've got our piece that we've decorated up here. So the first thing we want to do is add our frame onto our back here. And so let me just grab some liquid glue for this, and I'm just going to go around the inside of the frame like this. Add a little bit of glue there. And we're going to stack them up. Just like that. Doesn't that look so cool with those cute florals outside of our window? Love that. Then let's grab some adhesive on the back here. And we're going to attach it to our card base. And we want to line it up in this center back panel. and we're going to line it up with the top of the card. Just get that last backing off. So we're going to line it up with the top of the card. I'm going to turn it a little bit to help me line it up. And we want to make sure it's centered and stick it down. And because we've cut ourselves some leeway, both of our sides still fold in nicely. And we know we're not going to be too crushed for space when we try to put it into our envelope for mailing. Now we've got our little spacer like we would have with a box card, and we need to apply adhesive on these tabs here. So I'm just going to run a couple pieces of adhesive. You could use liquid glue, but I'm impatient. So I'm just going to add this. I could also use red tape if I wanted, but I don't think it's going to be under too much strain. We're not attaching anything to this. It's not going to be, you know, tortured or anything. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's not going to be strained, let's just say. So we don't need to go too crazy with the adhesive. So let's add our adhesive, take the backings off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece, we're going to open up our sides, and I want to have, I've got my adhesive tab facing up, and we're just going to line it up with that crease line to the left side of our center panel, and make sure that it's lined up nice and straight along the bottom of our card, and then all we have to do is fold that panel in, and that will attach it right there. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll tip it over to the side, we'll lay it down, and we'll have this panel come in and pick it up on this side. So now what we should be able to do is to tip it either way, back and forth. This one is a little squidgy just because I've got it creased a couple times over there. But there we go. We've got our little spacer. Can you see that? And then we need to attach our panel to the front. But before we do, let's grab some paper to decorate it, which I have just realized I forgot to cut. Oh my. We were having so much fun during Chat and Craft today that I was just not paying attention very well to what I was doing, apparently. Let me just grab the paper I want to use. It's this lovely pattern from the Sweet Memories collection. Yes, Sweet Memories. And for this one, we want a 3.5 by 1 inch piece. So let's cut 1 inch. Let me see. Where are we at? There we go. We're going to do the backwards cutting. Line it up on the other side. Much easier. And then we want 3.5. My trimmer is so huge, I can't actually lay it down on my desk right now, which is why I'm awkwardly balancing it on the edge. Because I have my laptop and things here. And it takes up a lot of space. It's a really old Fiskars rotary trimmer. I love it. It's a very favorite thing of mine, but it has some issues in terms of space. It takes a lot of space. I'm going to come in with my mulberry ink because this is a mulberry pattern. And I've got my little sponge here. And I'm just going to ink around the edges of this pattern paper. Again, it's 3.5 by 1 inch. And this is going to be like the cushion for our window seat. So we're creating a window seat bench card. So it's a bench card, but we're making it look like a window seat because it goes with what we're doing. And so this piece is going to get adhered onto our tab right here. Let's take the backing off and center it on there. There we go. Now this panel needs to get attached just like a bridge card would with adhesive on either side. So let's go ahead and add some adhesive just on this end part So we can kind of use our tab as our guide as to how far we need to go with our adhesive. There we go. I actually missed a bit there. So only put adhesive from the tab to the end. So again, from the tab to the end. There we go. And we can take those off. All our backings. Now, because these two sides are dangling up in the air like that, I'm going to show you the best way to stick this on so that it'll be much simpler in the long run. So all we want to do is fold our card flat. So you just pick one side, push it to the side. So this panel is facing up and this outside panel is facing up, and it's all squished over. So mine is going to the left. And then I'm going to take this panel and I'm going to line it up across the bottom of my card. Just like that, all the way across, and adhere it down like so. And then when I straighten this up, you can see that this tab automatically wants to fall into the gap. And you just push it down. And that creates the structure for our window seat bench card. So we're creating a bench, and this tab won't fall in because you remember we have that little spacer in there that's keeping it from pushing all the way through. And then when you want to fold your card to put it in the envelope to mail it, you just poke your finger up from the bottom and fold it over, and this will fit into a 5x7 envelope. How cool is that? So we've got our pieces now. We need to do some decorating on these panels, and I probably could have done that decorating before I stuck everything together, but we sometimes like to do things the difficult way. So I've got 4 different pieces of paper. I have 2 that are 1 1/4 inch by 3.5, and I have 2 that are 1 inch by 3.5, and it's this pretty sage pattern from the Sweet Memories collection. So each side is going to need 2 of these. So we're going to have the big one, the little one, then the little one, then the big one, and they're going to fit in these panels. So let's go ahead and attach the larger one here on the left front panel. Like so. And we're just going to center it in the space like that. Then we're going to come in with the 1 inch one. Now, if you were using the kind of pattern where it makes a difference that your pattern, you know, looks lovely all the way across, you can, of course, cut a 4.5 inch piece and then cut all your pieces from that afterwards. Now, for this one, I'm just going to push my tab a little bit out of the way and then line this up, center it in the panel. There we go. Then we'll come in with the narrow one again to do the other side. How's it going, everyone? Oh, I see Deborah's here. Hey, Deborah. Happy Valentine's Day. And we're going to stick this in this panel. Again, we'll move this tab out of the way. Stick it down. Cover up our sad score lines that we put in the wrong spot because sometimes that happens. And then we're going to come in with the last wider 1 1/4 inch wide by 3.5 inch piece to do this right front panel. Just going to line that one up and stick it down. So now we have some lovely wallpaper in our room with our beautiful little window seat and our lovely window looking out into the garden. Just a gorgeous little card happening there. But now for our last little bits of decoration, this is going to take a little bit of time, but not too long. First, we're going to fussy cut out this little guy, but I'm actually going to cut him right out of his chair. I don't want the chair. I just want him and his book and his blankie. So this is one of those times where I'm going to fussy cut right on the line, just skirting that stamped image line. And normally you would leave a halo of white, but because we would have little lines coming out of it, it would look really weird to do that. So we're just going to cut nice and close without cutting the line off. That's the trick. So it takes a little bit of patience, and you quite often have to snip the excess off because you want to make sure you can see what you're doing and move freely when you're getting this close. Now, this little bear has some furry fur, and so we have to be aware of that and not cut his furry fur off. But thankfully, in the spots where he has this nice little tuft of hair, there's no lines coming out from behind him. So what we can do is just graze over the tops of those little hairs there, and then come in where the solid ear is again, and come around. Now you say, isn't that going to look weird? It might right now, but we're going to do a little something extra. Again, we're going to skirt over those little furry bits. We're not going to cut them off, but we're just going to go around them. And then over the paw, around the last little bit of the blanket. And then we're going to do something that's just an extra step, but it makes it look good. Grab another scrap of white daisy, and we're going to glue this down. And you're all going, oh my goodness, she likes fussy cutting so much, she's decided to do more and more of it. Now my chat has disappeared, so I won't be able to see if you comment anything. For some reason, it's completely gone away. But we're just going to stick our little bear on there and let him relax there for a second. We're going to come in with our sentiment, and we're going to fussy cut our sentiment. We're not going to fussy cut every bit of it, but we're going to fussy cut around sort of the outline of it. So just around the edges, we're leaving a halo. Now this part, we're just going to skirt straight across all those letters, trim it off. We're going to come around the little foot of the T, the serif, I guess it's called. Come around until we get to the bottom of the M, and then come across. We're going to go around the little foot of the M. And here we can do a couple of these little bumps over the top of the M, just because we can. When we get to the U, we're going to come up and go around. And then we're just going to skirt across the top, just like we did for the bottom. We don't have to have every detail. And then we're going to come down and go in this little nook and cranny. And then we're going to go across the top of the W to meet up with where we started. Now you say, oh, that's lovely. Done. But no. But no. We're going to come in with a piece of sage cardstock, and we're going to stick this down. This is something that I like to do when I'm doing a scrapbook title and I've stamped out a title. I like to mat it so that it gives it more prominence. And on this card, I want to do the same thing. I want to mat my sentiment so that it gives it a little bit more prominence and it stands out a little nicer from the background. We're going to let that sit and dry while we come in and do a second fussy cut on our little bear. But this time we are going to leave our halo. So this will be a little quicker because we don't have to be as cautious with that edge. So now it looks like we have a bear with this that's been stamped that didn't have a chair to sit on. He's just there, cuddled up in his cozy blankie, reading his book, all happy and content. And, you know, sometimes you got to think about what you can do with your stamps, how you can modify them. I didn't do anything to my stamp, but when I stamp it, you know, just like you mask things and whatnot, you can totally alter the appearance of your stamped image by doing things like that, where you cut out some of the parts that you don't want and then redoing it. So I'm going to go around here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fussy cut around my previously fussy cut title. And again, it doesn't have to be as fussy the second time. I find when you do, a single, double, triple, whatever, matting on something, it becomes less fussy every time because you're getting farther from the original. So you just kind of go with the flow, create that halo with the sage, and it's going to create a nice effect. You'll see. You'll see what we're doing here in a minute. This is one of those cards where you're all sitting there going, what in the world is she doing, as I go through each step? And then finally, it all comes together and you're like, oh, okay, that's what she was doing. Wow, that's what she was doing. So now we're going to bring in our card. We're going to add our sentiment over here. So let's put some adhesive just on the bottom of it so that our sentiment can actually kind of stand up a little bit from that front sort of wooden edge that we've created on our nice little woodworking in our room here to make our window seat. We're just going to stick that on there like that. So that's kind of nice because it also lets us see some of that wood grain going all the way across, where if we had stamped it down there, it would seem a little too low on the card. And I think it just looks better being a little higher up. Now this little bear, I'm going to add just adhesive on the left side and on the bottom, because what we're going to do here is, because he was previously sitting in a chair, he has that kind of seated position to him. So we're going to have him sitting on the edge of his window seat, reading his book, enjoying the lovely day outside in the window, and just having a little bit of a chillax. So we're just going to stick him right on that front edge of the window seat, just like that. Isn't that so cute? And then we need to have some bling. We can't make a card without some bling. So here we come in. We're going to use some silver glitter gems. I've got just a few little scrappy bits left in this pack. Thankfully, I got another pack. And so let's take one of the larger ones. We'll stick it right here by our sentiment to give it some oomph. And then we'll take another larger one. And these will be kind of like his little imagination bubbles. He's reading about some kind of exciting adventure in his book. So those are his little thinky bubbles, all his imaginings. So there we go. We've got some bling on our card. And that is our window seat bench card. Isn't he so cute, sitting there reading his book? Lovely florals outside in the garden. We started out with just our plain white daisy card base, creating like a bridge card, but with this extra tab here that pops up and down. We've got our spacer in there to keep the bench seat from collapsing right in. Then we even did some wood grain technique on the front here. We did a technique using the fussy cutting, almost like paper piecing, and then adding a new background on it. A second mat here on our stamp sentiment. We've got our lovely pattern papers. This one is the cushion for our window seat. And then, of course, our lovely wallpaper. Then we've got our stamped and ink blended background outside of our lovely window. And I think that's just super cute. And we just pop that tab up, fold it down, and it will fit nice and flat into our 5x7 envelope. We have plenty of space on the back of the card to write our message. So it's kind of like a hidden message, because when it's on display, you only see the front. Super cute. And I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that bench card come together. Now, thinking about all the things that you could create with this style of card, you could create a workbench, with all sorts of tools and things hanging on the wall. You could create a kitchen counter with all your pots and pans and things like that. You could create a desk. You could create your craft room space. You could create just about anything you can think of. And I decided to do a window seat for this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that come together. I hope you feel inspired. I will be sure to put the correct measurements and score lines when I post the photos of this on the group and on the Facebook page. So feel free to go ahead and find those there. And if you create a card like this of your own, be sure to take a photo of it and pop it in the comments so that we can all see and be inspired by your artwork. All right, have a wonderful evening. We'll see you again soon. Toodaloo.